Welcome everybody to the New Flesh podcast. This is Mano A Mano. My name is Jonathan Astro. With me is Ricky Allpike and Yuri. Gentlemen, how are we?
Good, doing well. Happy to be back once again.
Raring to go.
Raring to go. I'm so excited. I love this show. I know I shouldn't just tongue bath you guys, but you know, I love this show.
Sounds gross. It's fucking gross.
It's the only reason I'm here. I'm here for the tongue baths.
That's good. Well, tonight I believe we are doing it's Van Damage tonight. Okay, so the muscles from Brussels. We're doing Cyborg and Bloodsport, both Canon films. We also did a little bit of research and watched the Canon documentary called Electric Boogaloo. So that will inform some of what we have to say. Maybe we launch, without further ado, into Cyborg.
Cyborg, also known as Slinger in some countries, is a 1989 American martial arts cyberpunk film directed by Albert Pune. A plague known as the Living Death cripples civilization. A small group of surviving scientists and doctors located in Atlanta work on a cure to save what remains of humanity. To complete their work, they need information stored on a computer system in New York City. Pearl Prophet, played by Dale Haddon, volunteers for the dangerous courier mission and is made into a cyborg through surgical augmentation. Pearl, accompanied by bodyguard Marshall Stratt, played by Alex Daniels, retrieves the data in New York but is pursued by the vicious Fender Tremolo, Vincent Klein, and his gang of pirates. Fender wants the cure so he can have a monopoly on its production. Stratt, badly injured while fighting the pirates, tells Pearl to leave him and find a mercenary known as a Slinger, who can escort her to safety. She gets cornered but is saved by a slinger named Gibson Rickenbacker, played by Jean Claude Van Damme. After she explains her situation, they are overrun by Fender's gang and Gibson is knocked out by falling debris. Fender demands that she accompany him to Atlanta or die. Fender's gang slaughters a family and steals their boat. They head for Atlanta via the intercoastal waterway with the captive Pearl. Gibson, who has been tracking the pirates, arrives at the scene of the slaughter later that night. A shadowy figure attacks him, but he disables her. She turns out to be Natty Simmons, played by Deborah Richter, a young woman who mistook him as a pirate. Natty, whose family was wiped out by the plague, joins Gibson. Gibson is less concerned with a cure for the plague than with killing Fender. Gibson and Natty trek southwards through the wastelands where the bandits ambush them. Concerned for Natty, Gibson unsuccessfully attempts to convince her to stay away. After declining sex with Natty, Gibson reveals that all he cares about is revenge against Fender, who killed his lover and destroyed his chance to have a normal life and family. Intercepting Fender and his crew near Charleston, South Carolina, Gibson defeats most of his men, but Fender shoots him with an air rifle. Now nursing a gunshot wound, Gibson realizes Haley, his dead lover's younger sister, whom Fender kidnapped, is now a loyal member of Fender's crew. He flees the pirates and ends up alone with Pearl and Natty. Pearl refuses to go with him. She calculates that Gibson is not strong enough to defeat Fender and will be unable to get her to Atlanta safely. She says she'll go along with Fender and lure him to his death in Atlanta, where she has resources at her disposal. Tired, wounded, and badly outnumbered, Gibson flees with Natty through the sewer into a salt marsh, where they are pursued by the rest of the pirates and eventually separated from each other. Gibson is thoroughly beaten by Fender and crucified high on the mast of a beached, derelict ship. Haley lingers at the scene, but still leaves with Fender. Gibson spends the night on the cross. In the morning near death, he kicks the mast repeatedly with his dangling foot in a last fit of rage. The mast snaps, sending him crashing to the ground. His arm still tied and nailed to the cross. Finally, Natty appears out of the mast to free him. Gibson and Natty intercept Fender once again at Atlanta, this time better prepared. Fender's gang is taken down one by one until he and Gibson face off. During their fight, Natty rushes Fender with a knife, but he stabs and kills her. Gibson in turn stabs Fender in the chest. Thinking him dead, Gibson embraces Haley, who during the battle turned decisively against Fender. However, Fender gets back up and they continue to battle in a nearby shed, where Gibson finally kills Fender by impaling him on a meat hook. Gibson and Haley escort Pearl to her final destination before heading back off, and that is where the film ends. Yuri, tell me about this film. What the fuck?
Fucked if I know. I'd never seen this before. And I was a little bit excited. It's like, oh, it's a Van Damme movie I've never seen. Maybe it'll be like some sort of hidden gem. And oh God, no, just no.
Well, we're doing Cyborg first so that we can end on Bloodsport, which is a far superior movie.
Oh yeah.
But this film has what can only be described as a Frankenstein feel. It's sci-fi, but it's medieval at the same time. You know, it's Blade Runner meets Conan the Barbarian meets Mad Max. You know, it's interesting that the film used sets and costumes from the Masters of the Universe sequel that was never made, as well as a live-action Spider-Man film that had to be cancelled because of Canon's financial troubles. And you can kind of see that. It looks kind of cheap, and sort of the costumes and the sets are kind of knocked together.
There's about 10 people in the movie.
That's right. Yeah. Well, they also a lot of the henchmen have dual roles as well to make it look like there's more cast members. So
they also kept reusing shots.
Oh God.
So there's, you know, the pirates have got their boat.
Oh yes.
Like they got two exteriors of this boat sailing down the river, and they used both those two shots twice in the movie.
I got the feeling that.
So you can't do that?
Well,
probably not the most effective way to sell a long journey from one point to another by just showing it.
You know what? I don't know whether I picked up on that, but I did feel as though the journey was just like a 20-minute ferry ride across the river, you know?
Oh, the editing made zero sense. It was just awful. Like, and I mean, I don't necessarily want to blame the editor. It might have been all they filmed, but yeah, there was no sense of journey. And then other times, people just teleported places. So there was that weird kind of almost pointless showdown. The first one with Van Damme and his little sidekick in some like abandoned warehouse with his team of. I mean, they didn't even seem to be pirates. They just seemed the main villains. They just seemed to be this separate group of villains that they got Jean Claude to just kick their ass for no reason. As soon as that scene was over, they just teleported to the beach. Like the next shot.
Right. Well, what do you know that Jean Claude Van Damme, he edited the film. So what you're watching is his edits.
But when we say that, like, because he did the same thing allegedly on. Him and Raimi, I think, did on a Hard Target, I think at least, much later. And when we say that, what we mean is he sat in a room and pointed at the moviola, and the poor editor did the work. Right, Yuri?
Yeah. He probably said some stupid ideas, maybe wanted to cut some scenes, extended other ones, probably clicked his fingers a lot, which drives me personally and probably a lot of other editors absolutely fucking insane. So yeah, I think saying he re-edited it is maybe like a generous reading of his involvement.
They mention it on the doco, on the Canon doco. They say that the original cut was allegedly even worse. I feel like I can see the editor's work. You know, I think you're right, Yuri. It's not their fault. Like I can actually see their creativity and how they've tried to make this, you know, into a product. You know what I mean? Like God knows what it was before, but I see a lot of hard work, you know, in trying to craft this into something. Although what they have to work with is very difficult.
Yeah. Well, if we pull back a little bit, the thing that I think the worst thing about this film is that the premise is not very well explained. You know, like the idea of slingers being almost, you can compare it to Blade Runner in a way. Like you've got these mercenary type guys that have a very specific set of skills that do a very specific job, and that's not really explained in enough detail to get a sense of who Van Damme is. And it would have been so simple to just have some sort of text at the start of the film, like in Blade Runner, that says what
a slinger is.
Yeah, what a slinger is. But you know, like in Blade Runner, it tells you what a Blade Runner is, and straight away you go, oh, okay, I get it. He's a guy who takes out the replicants. You know, whereas
He's like a hired companion, is he?
Yes, he is. He's like a
Is that what a slinger is? Is it?
I think
he's a guy that escorts people like a bodyguard out of the city.
Okay, all right.
I think it was kind of you picked it up from one of the many incredibly overlong flashbacks.
Oh yes.
Where I think there's almost like a line where this woman's hired him to escort them out, and she says, "Can you do it?" And he says something along the lines of, "That's what slingers do," or something like that, and like that's it. Okay. And if you miss it, you go, "What? Slinger?"
Well, hang on. In my notes here, I've actually got the original theatrical version does. Hang on. No, that's not right.
Oh no.
I've got the original theatrical version does not explain what slingers are. In the director's cut, the opening crawl defines slingers as hired warriors who safely escort people out of cities and protect them from the pirates. So I guess there's another version out there, a director's cut version that explains what slingers are, I guess.
Right.
This movie's 82 minutes long. Think about that.
The flashbacks. So the flashback to that woman who hired him and had two kids, and then, you know, he grows attached to the kids and ends up having a relationship with a woman and all this other stuff, like the whole backstory, they run that whole thing through twice.
They do.
So you get it in bits during the movie, and then once you get all of it, they just replay the whole thing at once, like they were trying to like just add length to the movie because they were under time.
Otherwise the movie would be like 60 minutes long.
Yeah, otherwise they like wouldn't have been able to like, you know, hit some sort of minimal length for, I don't know, some sort of release that they had to you know, deliver to. But yeah.
So there's a couple of things. Look, this movie was made for $500,000 and it made $10 million.
It made a shitload of money.
That made $10 million. That's just at the box office. So video would have done well. It spawned 2 sequels. Direct-to-video nonsense. But so this movie actually did quite well when you think about it. Well, I think that's a pretty good return on $500,000.
Yeah.
And it seems like they had some backlots, like 2 special effects shots with the cyborg, a rain tower, and some fire and some cans. That was it. You know, it was like a trauma film, you know, and like no extras.
Yeah.
Everyone in it is a main character, you know, and see him twice. Yeah. So, but the overall, this movie is for me, it is a cheap and nasty film, and the tone it's really nasty, you know, like there's something about it, like it seems to be much more punishing than a lot of other films. It's got that I mean, quite frankly, the bad guys, and led by that main bad guy who's a surfer, I think. He might be in Point Break, is he?
He is, yeah. He's one of the bad guys in the drug surfies that are
very memorable bad guy. And anyway, he's quite busy in this movie. He does the prologue. You know, if you notice that, he says, "I like this world."
That's about the only thing I think I maybe enjoyed about the movie.
Well, but the bad guys are these are canon bad guys to me. This is the Cobra bad guys. You know what I mean? Like,
but I did also like the idea of the villain doing the opening, doing the prologue and the narration. Yes. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen the villain do that before. So it starts out where he's just explaining it, and then at the end he goes, "Not me. I like this world. I like it, shit," or you know, whatever he says. I'm like, that's different. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, well, I thought that was good too, you know. But tonally, overall, like, just if you add it all up, there's you know, the killing of the family and like the wanton slitting of throats, and
well, the way it opens with people on stakes, like dead people on stakes rotting, and
there's like holding up severed heads and stuff. That's a different movie when you're doing that. When you're holding up severed heads, you know, that really puts you in a special category, you know. Because it's so intense. It's very intense imagery. So I think that there's something about it. All adds up to being quite nasty in tone, and but overall, I think it's kind of just like a JCVD audition tape, because he looks fantastic in it. Like, his body's great. You know, he's the right age, you know, to be king of the world. I don't know. It's. I mean, what do you guys think? Did you, in terms of it being Van Damme's?
I didn't even really think it was a good audition reel for him, because the action in it, and especially from a martial arts point of view, I think is kind of shitty. Like the fights, they're not well choreographed.
Yes.
He throws a lot of punches, and I'd not realized before. It's like, oh, he can't really throw punches, because his kicks are just spectacular. Like the way that man kicks is I don't know if I've seen anyone kick more beautifully than this fucking guy. But when it comes to his hands, not so much. When it comes to firing weapons, not so much. And that's what they kind of do more of. So I don't think they even kind of nailed that part.
Well, maybe I changed what I said. I think it's a good 8/10 of him. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it's
Yeah.
like it's not a good. Everything else isn't good, but the way he looks is good.
I found, just talking about the martial arts for a second, I found like a lot of the kicks and punches looked like they were in fake slow motion. A bit like Police Squad. In Police Squad, we reviewed this a while ago. It's a Leslie Nielsen film. Oh no, a TV show where there's this funny bit, where a guy, it's supposed to be a slow motion, like gunshot coming out and killing someone, but he's just pretending to do it in slow motion. But that's how I felt like a lot of these kicks and punches were like that. It was a bit strange to me.
I mean, maybe, I don't know, because you'd kind of hear stories, I guess, that supposedly Bruce Lee had to slow his movements down because he was too quick for the camera to actually catch him properly. So maybe they believe that, maybe that. But then again, this came after Bloodsport, or at least it was released after Bloodsport, and there was none of that sort of stuff.
It just comes down to resources, direction, all of that stuff, and I mean, there's a lot of bad stuff here, particularly around the martial arts. Like, I've never seen more people waiting to take their hits in my life. Like, I've got a good tolerance for that. Like, I don't mind it in Seagal. Like, I like it in Seagal movies when the guys fan out and get ready to come in one by one. I like that. I'm like, yeah, all right, they know the drill. But here, there was so much of people being right up close to each other, and a guy like, if you've done one boxing class, in the first one, they'd probably say, okay, never take your fist away from your jaw. Like, never take it away from your face. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so, whereas there's so much in this of people with like basically their hands in their pockets, holding their face out saying, I'm ready. Maybe
they didn't have a stunt coordinator on this one. Maybe they were just kind of extras that Van Damme was trying not to kick the shit out of, and maybe that's why he kind of had to slow things down.
Well, he did take out a guy's fucking eye.
He did, yeah.
So I'm sure that was that coming up in trivia later.
Yeah, you beat me to it.
Sorry, but we're talking about the stunts, how shitty they were. Yeah. Clearly, there was some shit got missed because he took a guy's eye out, and then the guy
with the sword,
sued. What? Presumably, it said it sued him.
Jesus.
It was on, and he got 500,000 or whatever.
Yeah, almost 500,000. Yeah, it did say that he took.
So he got the budget of the movie.
He did.
He did. Yeah.
He did. So that's terrible. But other bad things, the endless punching back and forth, so boring. Just like whoppish, like back and forth. You know what I mean? When you just watch two people just go whoosh, and there's no impact, there's no damage, like accumulative damage.
No, and clearly the bad guy also couldn't really throw a punch. So they kind of did that. It's filmed too close. It's too choppy. It's kind of the choreography sucks. So they've tried to cut action into it as opposed to shoot action. Kind of like in like some of the Taken sequels where Liam Neeson is, almost a geriatric. So they do like a million cuts for him to do the simplest thing to trick you into thinking that he's doing something impressive physically and is really not. So, and that even if you're not aware of what you're seeing, that does, like you said, lead to a very boring and unwatchable fight. And yeah, you're right. No accumulation, no damage. Like I don't remember like accumulation of like damage in either of them, like makeup effects or something. As the fight progressed or anything like that. It just,
there is a bit of that before he gets crucified, though, right?
Yeah,
because he gets beaten by Fender, and then
I think all the punching happened in the final showdown. Though, is that what you were referring to, Astro?
I definitely was referring to that shitty climax in the rain, endless punching, endless.
I've got an issue with that ending because, first of all, how did Van Damme beat the boat to Atlanta?
Yeah, how did he get there first?
And get crucified like on the way? So
he was crucified, and then all of a sudden he got there before them and was waiting.
He did, but also the way he attacks them, just like appears in front of all of them, is basically the same tactic that he used back in that sort of abandoned. It looks like an abandoned like a high-rise building somewhere where he's got to run away. So, but he's doing the same thing.
He uses his bow and arrow once. And then
he uses bow and arrow once, his tactic should have been. His tactic.
That's what slingers do. Slingers turn up, they give you a warning shot, and then they run away.
So they have their one and only weapon. Yeah. They use it only to get rid of the element of surprise, which might be their only possible advantage in that situation, and then they throw it down. I
know the Pachikas with him should have gone. Don't you think you should put an arrow through the lead guy, cut off the head of the seekers? No. He goes, no. What I do is I shoot it near his feet, and then he look me, and then I fight him.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. He should have picked them off like ambush style, like Rambo might have done.
No, you don't know what it is to be a slinger.
Apparently, also, when you're a slinger, before you fight the main bad guy, you just stand shirtless in the rain for a good 2 minutes, admiring each other. Then you fight.
Yes.
Did you notice how long they just stood there, just almost admiring each other's physique?
Well, they did. They've got pretty good rigs, and
that they do.
But it did. Look, it was a lot. It was a lot. There was no narrative drive. I just was like, "What the hell is this?" You know. So a couple of other things. I feel like, just like it's really hard. There's a lot of garbage here. So there's one thing. Here we go. Did you notice that in this movie, on two separate occasions, there is what we used to call in the old parlance scrag fights? So basically, the guys are fighting, and then the chicks have their little fight.
Yeah.
Did you notice this on two separate occasions? The chick, because she fought with different chicks, right? Both times.
Yes.
Yeah. So this movie knows the score. Okay, this movie knows the score. This movie's not Captain Marvel. It's not all like it's one of these modern movies where it's like just a hot thin model who is just kicking that butt. You know what I mean? Yeah. Kicking that butt all the way.
Kicking male butt.
Yeah, oh no, just like doesn't matter how big it is. Could be an actual wrestler, and she's kicking his butt. You know what I mean? Whereas Cyborg says back in 1989, they were like, okay, so anyway, the fight's going over here. Okay, so the scrag fight that happens over here, and then they pair off. You know, so and I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying it happened in the movie. Okay,
twice.
They made a point of it. They made a point. Yeah. They were like, oh, they would have said something that's verboten. Now they'd be like, oh no, there's no way those guys that if that chick fought one of the guys, he'd just kill her straight away.
Yeah,
and then like that, now that guy would be quietly fired. The grip who said the grip or the lighting guy who said that, he'd be quietly fired, and they'd say, that's it for you.
Yeah, the director would be like, who said that? Who said that?
Yeah. Who the fuck said that?
I mean, would it be the director or the 21-year-old work experience kid?
Probably, yeah. They'd just be like, I felt unsafe. Why? Oh, that guy said that. That guy said that. Olivia Munn couldn't beat fucking Tyler Mane or whatever. And then you go, And then they say, "Oh yes, yes. Well, anyway, don't worry. Before you finish the sentence, I already fired the man who said it. So don't worry. Don't worry.
Don't worry. He's going to struggle to pay his mortgage from now on. It's
He
fine.
He will."
Hey, now, Yuri, I've got a technical question to ask you. Is there something weird going on with the cinematography in this film? Because I kept thinking that the whole thing was stretched a little bit. Like whether there was something wrong with my TV or something wrong with the version that I was watching, or...
Well, I mean, I ended up paying for this piece of shit, which is maybe why I'm even angrier at it. Like, so the version I watched, I got through iMovie.
How much did it set you back?
$5 for the rental.
Wow, you're never going to get that back.
No, I'm really not. But even the version I watched, it was. I think it's basically a shitty transfer. So I think there was some interlacing issues in the very early scenes, or at least some of it seemed low res. And then, it was all a bit of a mess, and even like a technical mess. There were scenes where I think they'd done pickup shoots where the lighting conditions changed drastically as they intercut from one kind of close up to another one. So, once a few of those things popped up, I stopped paying attention to the technical side of what was going on. So, I mean, it may well have been stretched. It may not have. There was just so much crap. I just stopped caring after a while.
Without giving away the magic of the man behind the curtain, I can say if we're using VLC to watch this, then you just need to go to aspect ratio and change it to 16:9 because it's a bit stretched, right?
Okay.
Maybe cut that bit out.
Although, just to find one back at you, Allpike. The bad guy's name, Fender Tremolo.
I have
someone
this
was
down.
a Gibson fan that went, I fucking hate Fenders and their tremolo bars.
Well, listen, I had this in my trivia, and it is probably the thing I hate most about this film. Every character's name is the name of a musical instrument or a manufacturer. So you've got Gibson Rickenbacker. Gibson is a guitar company. So is Rickenbacker.
Are guitars.
Natty Simmons. Simmons is drums. Natty is some other synthesizer, I think. Then you got the Fender Tremolo. Fender Strats famously come with a tremolo arm, also known as a whammy bar. Then you've got Marshall Strat, Marshall amplifiers, Fender Strat guitars. Then you've got Pearl Prophet. That Pearl is Pearl drums, Prophet is Prophet synthesizer. I was like, as soon as I realized that, I thought this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Why?
See, I didn't click with any of the other ones. Yeah.
Now, do you think it's a good movie? Or
no, no, I don't.
Now it's brought it all together.
Bad guy's called Fender Tremolo.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's probably the most ridiculous one because the other ones can almost blend in, but Fender Tremolo there's nothing else that sounds like those two words. So I mean, Rickenbacker sounds like a name, Gibson sounds like a name, Pearl, all those sorts of things. But yeah, Fender Tremolo.
No, but I can picture the movie that this would be great in, and it's not this one. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a movie out there where this would be good, and I think there's just too many crimes going on that this was the final straw. So you were like, you don't get to be tricky with the names, okay? Like, I don't think it's charming, like and there are people on there's. If all the bad guys had musical names, I'd be like, okay. But it's like everyone. So like the good guys, the bad guys, people who knew each other, people who didn't know each other. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, so what? Everyone in this world is a music store? Like,
did they get paid endorsements or
like,
It might just be a testament to how maybe under-resourced this movie was. Because, years ago when I attempted to write things, I found character names were actually surprisingly hard to come up with.
They are, yeah.
So given that this seems to be a cobbled together movie that's been like, we've got some leftover costumes, we've got some leftover sets, let's bung a quick script together.
Yeah. Well, I think the script was written in 2 weeks or something, wasn't it?
I wouldn't be surprised. So in that 2 weeks, it's like, oh shit, we need a bunch of names. It's like, oh, well, I've got my Fender over there, so yeah, music stuff. Let's just call them that and move on.
Not good. I think overall, I mean, well, not overall. I just feel like I feel like this movie was never what I wanted it to be.
No.
Like, it had a wicked poster. It was a giant thirst trap. Okay, like I thought about it a bunch. I had the poster, and I would only watch it rarely, you know, as a formative in my formative years. But Bloodsport, I think I watched Bloodsport every week, sometimes every day. You know, like, whereas,
well, were you disappointed that the Cyborg wasn't Jean Claude Van Damme?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we both said it the same. Yes.
And the Cyborg's barely in it, and the Cyborg doesn't do anything. There's no reason for the Cyborg to be a cyborg.
It was originally, the film's original title was Slinger.
That would have made more sense.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I guess then they would have had to actually explain what that means. But this movie just kind of under-delivered in every single way. Like the action was crappy, the martial arts was crappy. You know, of course, there's nothing else in terms of the story that's any good or interesting or anything like that. It looked bad.
Endless sharpening of knives.
They just all the knife sharpening.
Hey, and, there was a scene where they were all sharpening them at the same time as well.
Yes.
It's like, all right, boys, it's 12 o'clock. It's sharpening time.
But it wasn't just the villains. It was Jean Claude was in a completely other direction. I guess in the post-apocalyptic world, like 7 p.m. is just knife sharpening a clock or something.
No, but there was also a lot of getting guys to stab themselves or slit their own throats. So he did that twice in the first scene. He like snuck up behind someone and slowly, like in an awkward position, standing on like a fucking crate or something. Like you know, that did the old thing where you use the guy's hand with the knife and it just to kill himself, and it was too much. They did that a bunch, and I'm like, stop that, just kick him. You're Van Damme. Stop doing things that aren't your kicking.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, listen, don't you think that the Cyborg's redundant? Like the Cyborg could be someone who has a computer chip or someone, you know, who's
for the Death Star.
Yeah, got the plans for the Death Star, you know, like R2-D2 or something. You know, at least R2-D2 had some fucking skills. Like he had that little dick that comes out and goes inside the tape machine thing, you know.
Okay.
You could electrocute people.
Stops a trash compactor, yeah. But I mean, also, it made no sense. Why is like the scientists, the saviors of humanity in Atlanta? And then they had to go somewhere else to get what information exactly that she has to take back to Atlanta? And then why does it have to be a cyborg to do that?
Look, Yuri, don't you get it? The only way to get the information is to literally turn into a cyborg. And then even though we've got the technology to turn you into a cyborg, like, and that's amazing, it's not as amazing as the thing we need you to carry. We need you to tell people about the cure for the plague. Okay, but first we've got to turn you into cyborg. Anyway, hold these plans for hold this memory card with all the same information on it while I turn you into a cyborg. You say, wait, hold up. If you've got all the info on the memory card, why do I need to become the cyborg again? Anyway, then you're asking too many questions. Lay down. It's time to begin.
Can't you just email it to yourself?
We're going to start with the dick. No, we're going to start with the dick. The dick is coming off first. Okay. You don't need that. Anyway, I'll give you the plans after. They're safe in my pocket.
I imagine the actual answer was they had a leftover unused cyborg animatronic from a failed movie that they just bunged into this one.
It's very cynical of you, but I think you're right.
Well, I mean, especially after watching that doco on Canon Studios or whatever they were. It's
the Canon Group.
Yeah.
Crazy Israelis.
Fucking crazy Israelis.
Menachem Golan and Yoram Globus.
And I mean, even then, like, was it Golem and Globus? Even that sounds made up.
Well, I never could put it together. After watching that documentary, Electric Boogaloo, it felt like I had the piece of the amulet, because my whole life I've watched some of their films like so much, and they had after seeing the doco, it explained everything. I was like, oh, that's why they're so fucking weird, is because of this great cultural sort of dissonance between these Israeli guys making movies in America, and just the people that they put in their stable, like Charles Bronson and Chuck Norris and stuff, like, and loving it,
Yeah, it's like an immigrant's idea of what an American audience wants, and you go, no, it's all just a little bit off.
Yes, but which is why I loved it, and but they're really special. But then, we get films like this, which is the worst type of thing. It's the worst of canon, I think you just go, oh my God, this is
the highs are high and the lows are pretty low.
One good thing, since we've slammed it so hard, really great scream off between Van Damme and the bad guy.
Oh, yes.
What did you think of their scream off?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, there was some weird stuff going on.
And like there was so much like slow-mo screaming,
I mean, there was a bit of this going on in Bloodsport as well, and probably in a lot of other Van Damme movies. There's almost like a little bit of homoeroticism going on.
Oh, well, I watched a YouTube video which explored this a bit, and they were saying,
I think I sent that one to you where the guy thought it was a conspiracy that Van Damme was actually gay.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the guy was saying, look, I thought one thing he said was correct, is that at the end of the day, Van Damme is Euro. He's French or whatever, like a Belgian, whatever.
Belgian.
I'm sorry. Look, I come from a ridiculous convict nation, okay? I know nothing about anything. So I'm sorry. Anyway, he's Belgian, and he's just, everything's a little bit, they just do it differently. Like, and he would always and throughout his movies, he was always a much more of a big deal than, like, there was certainly no female bodies that were allowed to get in front of his rippling like back and butt cheeks.
Well, this movie had the only titties I think I've ever seen in a Van Damme movie.
Yep.
And even they were fleeting.
And they were bolted on as well.
Yeah, right.
Venga picked up on that. She was like, because I was actually writing some notes when they popped up on screen, and she's like, "Did you just see that?" I was like, "What? Oh, you just missed the titties." Like, okay, I've got to rewind that. We go back.
Of course you did.
And then she's like, "Why do they look like that?" And I'm like, "They're fake."
Right. That's disappointing. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I always feel like Van Damme in his movies, he is the centerpiece.
He's the eye candy.
Yes, he is.
And actually, it's one of my notes where, in the entire like kind of final like post-climactic part of the movie, because he lost his shirt in the final battle, and then they took the cyborg back to the scientists and all his, advancements in the building and all the rest of it, and he's still fucking shirtless. It's like, get the man a shirt. He just saved the world. Give him a shirt. He's cold. It's raining.
Yeah.
I like the arrogance as well of like, come with us, Gibson or whatever. And he's like, no, they need us more out there, like for a sequel. And I'm just like, no, they don't. They don't need you. They don't. They didn't really need you in this one.
Yeah.
So don't get too excited.
Well, I mean, maybe $10 million says you're wrong. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. I love this company, and I love what they do, and I love their attitude, and they were right. I mean, at the end, like it was just they were good at that thing, which is, just lying to people about what they're going to go say. And I bought it. I lapped it up. I was like, oh yeah, that looks good.
Well, Yuri, you lapped it up too. You paid $5 for it.
Yes, I did. And I wish I hadn't.
They're still alive, and I love that you gave them a little bit of money.
They still got something out of me.
Anything to say on the music, Ricky? Or
I thought the music was pretty cliched and over the top, to be honest.
Right. Lalo Schifrin, no good.
No
good.
Lalo Schifrin.
Yeah, he did some work on this.
Did he? Oh.
But there's two, so
I didn't
God knows.
see his. Well, there are two. Yeah, the director's cut has the original score. That they had an original score that got thrown out and replaced by the one that I believe we all saw in preparation for this. I think, I'm not sure, but yeah, I think it's always a bad sign when you hear a score's been thrown out, because I know what the director would have said, or the producer would have said to the second composer. They would have said, "Save my film." They would have gone, "You need to save the film," and then they just throw everything in there, everything, the kitchen sink, the whole deal, and it's just too much. Music alone can never save a bad picture. You can make a good picture great, but it's never going to save a turd.
Well, if you're interested in seeing the director's cut, after 23 years, my longtime composer Tony Ripperetti has found a VHS telecine of my director's cut, the only copy in existence, I believe. Pune, the director, tells us. This is from Dread Central. It has the original Tony Ripperetti and Jim Sard music score, which was thrown out when Canon Films and Jean Claude took over the editing. The telecine is of the last cut I ever did from the original 35mm work print. And it has a stereo 10 mix. It hasn't been gone through the MPAA, and he's I think selling it on his at the back of his car.
So it's his version of the Snyder cut.
Yeah, I guess so. So. Oh God.
Well, I've got one last piece of trivia for you guys.
Right.
When the film was first released on VHS in Germany, so many violent scenes were cut out that the film ran only 58 minutes.
Oh my God.
Not even reaching feature length.
So it was basically 2 scenes in the flashbacks.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on from this.
Imagine seeing that version of the film. You'd be like, what did I just watch?
Well, actually, I must say, and I know we're not selling it very well, but it was long. And it was a tough watch. What do you think?
I've got to say, there's one positive note in my notes here.
Okay.
In the flashback where Jean-Claude and his, I guess, adopted family get menaced by the villains, the kind of the way they kill most of the people and the torture device was actually pretty cool, where they tied most of them up with barbed wire, hung them from the top of a well, and gave the other end of the barbed wire to the little girl to hold.
Yeah,
that was
so it cuts her hands.
Yeah, it was like you hold this to save your family's life, but it's also cutting into your hands. It's like, fuck, that's something.
Famous nod to probably Once Upon a Time in the West. Charles Bronson's character.
They stole that from that, did they?
Well, it's I don't, in this case, since it is a sort of a bit of a neo-Western, I think it's a fair nod. And it, it's a flashback in Once Upon a Time in the West. When Charles Bronson's a kid, he is, I believe, Henry Fonda rolls up, puts Bronson's brother on a crate, and then gives the rope to Bronson, I think, and he has to hold it. And so same sort of deal, but not as good. They took it to the next level. The well and the barbed wire is I think a worthy addition to the device. All right, come on. Surely it's Bloodsport time, eh?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Yes.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, so here we go. Army Captain Frank Dukes goes AWOL to attend a secret martial arts tournament in Hong Kong called the Kumite, in which fighters from around the globe compete in brutal bare-knuckle fights, with death being a distinct possibility. We discover in a lengthy flashback that Frank is not just doing it for laughs. As a foolish youth, he and some friends broke into the house of Senzo Tanaka. Frank is caught in the act, and Tanaka sees some kind of potential in Frank and decides to let him help train his own son, Shingo, in the ways of ninjutsu. Young Shingo dreams of one day entering the tournament, the Kumite, to honor his father and the teachings of ninjutsu, which have been passed down over the years. We discover that Shingo dies, unfortunately, and his father laments that the lineage of the teachings will be lost. Frank asks to be trained, and Senso eventually agrees and trains him in the ways of ninjutsu. Cut to the present. Now in Hong Kong, Frank makes friends with the burly American Ray Jackson, and the both of them being shown the ropes of Hong Kong and the tournament by Victor Lin. Frank proves his connection to Tanaka by showcasing the dim mak, or the death touch. And we're off and racing. He's in the tournament. As Frank and Jackson fight their way through contenders, it's clear that whoever wins will have to go through Chong Li, played by Bolo Young, the current Kumite champion, who has even killed some pricks. Meanwhile, Frank has become involved with a nosy and sexy reporter called Janice, who is desperate to discover the secrets of the Kumite. He's also on the run from 2 army agents who are tasked with bringing him back home unscathed. Ray Jackson battles Chong Li and is defeated badly. Janice begs Frank not to fight, but he tells her he has to do it to honor Tanaka and the lineage of the teachings. Frank fights Chong Li and gains the upper hand when Chong Li tries some pussy shit and throws some blinding dust in his eyes. Frank draws upon his teachings to fight blind, and he centers himself to kick Chong Li's ass and become the first American to win the Kumite. Bloodsport. 1988. What do we think? Bloodsport.
Possibly one of the best martial arts movies of all time.
For sure, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Most popular Van Damme film, do we think?
I think maybe between probably most popular. For me, it was always a toss-up between this and Universal Soldier.
Really?
Yeah.
There was this and Universal Soldier. That's amazing. Like, I wouldn't have picked you as a Unisol guy.
At the time, I mean, I've not watched it for probably 25 years, so God knows what I think of it now. But yeah, at the time, it kind of felt like that those were the two that I like the most.
Okay.
The thing I love about this film is, even though not a lot of the fighters in this kumite have any lines of dialogue, but they all have a backstory that you sort of privy to, and they all have a personality and a unique style to their fighting that I think that just enriches sort of the story, but also the idea of the kumite, like fighters from around the world coming together to showcase their stuff. And it's that classic thing of, which style is better. I know some films do that, play on that more, like, which styles are better. And I know in the early days of the UFC, that was the thing too. But but I love that. Like, you got the Japanese guy who's like kind of like a sumo guy. You've got a Brazilian sort of capoeira guy. Then you've got, sort of a Thai, Muay Thai guy. You've got a Saudi Arabian guy. You've got this weird African guy who fights in a monkey style, and then you have Dukes, and then you have Jackson, who's more of a bare knuckle boxer guy. And then you've got Bolo Young, and I kind of like that aspect of it. But I also love that it's filmed. I think it's one of the only films that makes use of the Kowloon walled city. Which, if you guys don't know what that is, I did send you a little. It was, I think, a German documentary on YouTube.
I've seen parts of the doco, yeah, and I watched some other stuff.
It's great. So what it is originally, I think it was like a military outpost, but then was sort of turned into residential housing, and they've just built house upon house upon house upon apartment, and it's just like this really strange cobbled together world where there's no sunlight in there at all. There's this tiny little corridors, and people live there, but they also work there. So there's like tiny factories where people are making rice paper rolls, and there's a noodle factory in there, and there's people doing fucking metal work in there. And in
one of the docos I saw, there was a guy who said an Australian guy was interviewing someone there. Well, actually, 2 guys were walking through, and he said that there were some really old people who had been born there and never left there.
Yes. Yeah. I know.
They never left the place.
Yeah.
Which is staggering. And that it could take some of them an hour to get up to the top and down with their ailments. But
that's right.
Still,
yeah.
So a 2-hour round trip to go and see your friend up top and come down.
Yeah, that's right. And fascinating and terrifying. I think it was knocked down in 1996, I think. But yeah, fascinating. And so that's where the Kumite is set. It's inside there, and there's like a gym in there. And I'll definitely post a link in our show notes to that documentary that's on YouTube, because it's a fascinating.
Well, it's
place.
incredible.
Like,
it turns out to be, the film turns out to be a documentary, really, because of that part of Hong Kong, even in the fleeting glances we see of it, because it now no longer exists.
Yeah.
So it's really unique, and
also it was a lawless place. You know, it was run by the triads, and it was sort of left alone to be run by the triads. So the Hong Kong government sort of had nothing to do with it, and they even stole power illegally from so outside. They were drawing power, and you know, whenever the power went out, they'd have to put a new cable and a new connection. So when you're going through these tunnels and you're seeing all these wires above, that's all, you know, just, it's like snakes upon snakes of wires, you know, for power and electricity and stuff. It's mad.
It almost, that reminds me of the movie Dread with, was it Carl Urban?
Mm-hmm.
Where, you know, just these giant buildings that are controlled by this, you know, criminal organization, and he has to fight his way up it. It's, yeah, wouldn't have ever thought that something like that would ever be a real place. It's fascinating.
Incredible, and absolutely incredible, and totally, I think, taken for granted every time I watched it, you know, particularly from my privilege in suburbia, you know, just sitting there going, oh yeah, and not really thinking about it as being a real place. And it's now that I see it in context and knowing a little bit more about the world, I go, wow, that is a really special and unique location. And it's sort of the labyrinthine quality of Kowloon gives the film, lends it a magical quality, because we go down the rabbit hole to get there, you know?
Yeah.
Now we can talk about Frank Dukes a little later, and don't get ahead of ourselves. But I did watch another video where a guy suggests that he was actually there, and he says it occurred not in the place where they say, but it occurred in like, you know, something that looked more like a gym. You know what I mean? Like
a YMCA or something.
Yeah, like it was more, but was way more official and not like that. And I'm so glad they didn't do that, and they took us down this rabbit hole. And because the fact that we have to go into this lawless place, that actually justifies to a certain extent, or rather makes logical, the idea that Chong Li could kill two people there and not be. It seems beyond the law where they are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas if it was at the local place, you'd say, okay, so is someone calling the cops? Or like, yes. Even when the cops come later, now that you know about Kowloon, you're like, well, what are they going to do? Storm the place?
Yeah.
You know, like, just, they can't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Well, if I could just ruin things for a minute.
You can.
So there is now an organization called Bare Knuckle Fight Club or something like that, where they literally do bare knuckle boxing, and it's getting quite big. It's getting a lot of traction, and a lot of former UFC fighters are kind of at the end of their career going over to there. And a guy just died after one of his bouts. So after one of his bouts, he was then hospitalized, and I think a few days after that, he passed away. You know, and there has been kind of deaths in boxing in the past. Where it does eventually happen, unfortunately, and it's, you know, quite horrible and tragic. But it's still, I guess, because you're doing it in this kind of, you know, a sanctioned event, it's not homicide or manslaughter or anything like that. So it is almost within the realm of possibility that Chong Li could kill people.
But he does it dishonorably as well. Like, he does it
100%
after people have already been beaten. You know, like,
he's even trying to get the ref involved. He's even trying to kick the ref's ass.
Can I ask what the deal is with that ref?
What do you mean, what's the deal with him?
He's
doing a good job.
Has no business being a referee at the Kumite. He looks like he should be working in a parking garage or something. Like.
Right. Oh, there are worse looking refs in the UFC.
But he doesn't do anything either. He's got no power to stop anyone from doing any dodgy shit, you know.
Look, I mean, if it was going to be this sort of, you know, illegal underground, life-threatening sort of, yeah, they should have got someone who could at least pull someone off,
Right.
you know, pull one of the fighters off.
Yeah. Okay. I'll wear it. I'll wear it. Okay. He's not. I don't know why I like him.
There is something likable about him though. He's just a regular dude,
And they make a big,
and he's in there with all his animals.
and they make a big point of Frank saving the cat. You know, like he saves him at
Yes.
the
Yeah.
and that's really important. Is that he's honourable, and he's like, he puts him in place and does his dance move to get down to the other corner. So there's a lot to cover. So I think this might be, definitely my favorite Van Damme film, like by a country mile. Like, you know, I like Kickboxer, but this movie has something that one doesn't. I think it might be my favorite canon film of all time. I love Masters of the Universe, so I unapologetically say that. And I like Cobra, but I think this movie, I watched this, and I know I say this, you know, every time we watch it, for these sorts of movies, because it has been a while, but I got a little busted up watching this movie. Now, come clean. Did this get you, either of you?
Oh yeah, I was choking up.
Yes.
Sure.
Come on,
And
Yuri.
and I think it has something to do with the amazing montages and the great songs in this movie. You know, Fight to Survive is just great, you know. And
As soon as that music, the drums I love the drums in this movie.
yeah.
Just as soon as it started, I was just like, oh yes. And then it was like, and that backbeat, you know, that driving backbeat.
Yeah.
Of the and it just starts up, and I could hear the lyrics in my head even when they were just doing the score. I was just like, you know, body's ready, heart's on fire.
Yeah.
So
and
good.
I think, I think I don't want to bring it back to Cyborg, but you know, Cyborg didn't have any montages or any good songs or anything, you know. And not to say that would have saved the film,
but actually, you know, I think you said before, you know, that music can improve a film. It can't save a film.
yeah.
But then again, it is transformative. Like, I mean, you've got to have something there. You can't have nothing. But there are so many instances. Like First Blood is a good example. They had a different score on that, and then when they put Goldsmiths over it, it completely transformed the movie. People were like, "Oh my god, this is triumphant!" You know, I really love this movie. And this movie, I think, is exactly that. Without the score, this movie would be completely different. It is the absolute heartbeat of the movie, and therefore, it's so good that when people aren't talking, this movie actually raises significantly above its weight. Do you know what I mean? Like, I go, oh wow, like, you know, this is, and that's the beauty of cinema. That is cinema. When you've got this you know, this ballet dancer doing his amazing work, you know, and then that music, you're just like, oh wow, this is pure cinema, you know. And I think that's, for me, why this movie cuts through, and it's something that isn't there in the later films. A lot of other stuff is there later on. By the time we get to Sudden Death and Maximum Risk, you know, big budgets and proper actors surrounding Van Damme. He's a bit better special effects in Time Cop. You know, they're getting closer to being proper real movies, and you know, but this fledgling little film, I think, has got a heartbeat that those films don't have, and that's why everyone loves this movie. Everyone. If you meet someone. Okay, it's mostly dudes, but if you meet a dude and
Venga loves this movie.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's great. And I want women to write in and tell me that I'm being a pig and say, no, I love it, because I just don't get to talk about Bloodsport with women often. You know, it's not something that happens. I'd be more than happy to, but it's like this movie just, I think people are just in love with this movie. They're just like, oh, you know, they recognize, even if they're not cinephiles, that this movie's got something that, you know, the Quest doesn't have.
Yeah. Well, even Van Damme's like goofiness is sort of likable, you know. I think that's the thing I was thinking about the other day. Like, it's got pretty hardcore, full on action and violence in it, but at the same time, it has a bit of like this childlike quality, because Dukes is so I don't know, he's got an innocent quality about him. He's very moral. He's yeah, I don't know. I think that's an interesting mix, you know.
Boy Scout.
Well, I think this is the perfect Van Damme business card. This is the role for him at the right time. So he was 18 when this movie actually came out, which is crazy. But he's young, he's beautiful. It showcases all of his amazing physical abilities. And you're right, yeah, kind of even his bad, shitty acting does kind of come off as likable. And, you know, and they really show the shit out of his, you know, glistening, ripped physique on multiple occasions. This is like the perfect movie for this man.
And those moments that we sort of half make fun of, like his iconic screaming, his blind acting, you know, there are moments in this movie that, well, I just mentioned one before. He does little grapevines to get, you know, to get down to the corner of the mat and stuff. Like these flourishes, he's giving it 110%. Like his screaming in slow-mo, that gets me with the music. It gets me because he is totally unabashed. He's totally unself-conscious, and it's just on the edge of being hilarious. And that's why it's been turned into a GIF, is because when you take the music away and, you know, you take it out of context, of course it looks funny because he's just going, you know, doing all that. And but in context with all that it's meant to have, and in the, you know, after everything that's come, he is just totally free in a way that is so compelling. You know what I mean? Like those moments should be totally laughable, 100%. But I would argue that they're not. Like when he's blind, for instance.
I think it kind of clicks over where he's kind of. To me, this is the one movie where he's actually found whatever magic Schwarzenegger has. Because whenever Schwarzenegger, like somehow his ridiculous accent and voice and delivery and all the rest of it, you know, it's hard to explain why, but they're magical and you just love watching it. And I think this is the one movie where Van Damme has captured that same quality. So I think that's why, you know, that's why all these, you know, it's that screaming is almost like it's not a tumor moment.
Yeah, and it's iconic.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like, you know, we've talked about this before in other contexts, but you know, in terms of singing about who's got the most, you know, recognizable voice, you think of Bob Dylan, you think of Bjork, you know. And now Bob Dylan, I've heard him sing properly, and it's very different to the voice he uses. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, his voice is iconic. He could be perfectly melodic, I'm sure, in his day if he wanted to. But that's not what he, you know, that's not his jam. And therefore people parody it, and therefore you win. Once people parody you, it's that you've captured, you know, the flag, so to speak.
Well, there's a few other iconic moments in the film. It has the classic splits that Van Damme's known for. It's got the dick punch.
Johnny Cage.
Yep, Johnny Cage. So it does the splits and the dick punch. Then the ass shot as well.
Oh, he was pausing, waiting for someone to call action, and using some of the pause so you get more of his ass.
Well, you know, a little something for the ladies. Like Venga said that he's an attract, because I asked, you know, is Van Damme hot? And she's like, yeah, he's pretty hot. She said he's like, she's trying to put her finger on it. She's like, he's a beefcake, but he doesn't have a beefcake face.
Yes.
So he's got the soft features in the face, but you know, rippling.
And he's not weirdly sleazy in this movie either. I think he kind of got a bit sleazy, or he came off as a bit sleazy and gross when he got a bit older. But in this one, he's young and beautiful.
I also think this movie is not just about fighting, and that's why, you know, I mean, obviously when I was a kid, definitely was just about fighting, but then when the more you think about it, it's because Frank wants to win for Tanaka and, you know, the late Shingo and the lineage, and it's about honor and a new family, and it's a burden, you know, but a noble one, carrying on this tradition that his master said was going to die. He lamented that it was going to die out after all those years, and he said, no, I'm gonna carry it on for you and for Shingo and for the lineage. I think that's beautiful. You know, I mean, that's meaningful. And then one great piece of conflict is after Jackson gets maimed, is that Janice says, you know, don't fight tomorrow, don't do it. And he's like, you don't get it, you know. I'm not. She's like, don't, you're going to get killed or whatever. And he's like, I have to do it. He's like, I want to be the best I can be, you know, and not just for me, you know. And I think that simple message is maybe, and again, it's, you know why I love it? I love it because it's sincerity. And it is, as we've said, you know, Oscar Wilde said that all bad poetry is sincere, you know. And this movie, those moments, you can laugh at those and go, oh, well, you know, it's not The English Patient. And you go, yeah, I know, but it's honest and it's meaningful in a way, in a dorky way, because, you know, some of the things in life, some of the feelings we have are dorky. They're hard to defend, but they get you anyway. You know, that's why I got choked. And that's why I think you held them in, Yuri. You held in those tears. And they turned into diamonds and rolled down your cheeks.
I think when I was younger, I didn't care or pay attention to or appreciate those moments. And now I've seen this movie quite a lot. So it's almost, you know, it's almost like just rewatching things. You know it's coming up. You're not thinking about it much. You're not really engaging with it after repeated viewings. I think it got to a point where I was just like, oh yeah, come and get to the fight scene. I want to see the helicopter kicks again.
Get it. Get on with it is what you were saying.
I mean, also, you know, I come from a cold, hard place, you know. Us Eastern Europeans are a bit of a different breed.
No, but it's meaningful when the dam breaks. It's big.
Oh no, I'm a total pussy, but yeah, not with this movie.
Hey, is anyone with me? Victor Lin has all the best lines.
He does. I love that guy.
Was that their fixer guy?
Yes.
I never realized before that he is swearing his head off in this movie. He's brilliant.
He's great.
Yeah.
So I got my favorite. So my favorite line. Well, for the first, I mean, Ricky, do you have any favorites? Do you want to?
I'm just trying to think. When he does the dim Mac, he says something funny, doesn't he?
Yeah. So he goes. Now, bear in mind, cancellers, that I love this character and this is the way he talks, and it's not because he's Asian. Okay, so to say that, but he goes, it's his intonation as well. They're taking too long to sign Frank up, and he goes, "What's the hold up?" And then they go, he says, "Senzo Tanaka is his shidoshi." What's the difference if Bruce Springsteen is his shidoshi?
Yes, I love that bit.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
What a great line. I was like, yes. I was like, yes.
Yeah.
So good. You know?
He was definitely the biggest revelation in this viewing. I'd never noticed previously how brilliant that fucking guy is. He's the best.
Yeah. That's what I like about this movie too. Like Frank and Jackson become really good friends, and it seems like they're almost like a trio with this other guy now. Like, you know, they become great friends. I think it's lovely.
That's what we like. That's why that's why episode 4 of Star Wars is so great. It's because it's new friends, new family, new connections, companions made through, you know, action and made through, you know, new experiences. Whereas, you know, we seem to now only do these dynasties where everyone is related. But there's something nice about going to a strange land and meeting, you know, what a great trio, you know, and they all play off each other, you know.
Yeah.
You Jackson, you look like a Jackson.
Yeah. Frank Dukes? No, it's Dukes. Oh, like put up your Dukes.
Yeah, he's so good. He's so good, you know.
Has he been in anything else, this guy?
Well, I checked and no, I don't think he has. Like,
that's a missed opportunity.
Well, actually, I should have done a bit more checking because everyone else, like everyone involved, small and large, is involved in other stuff on Wiki, but actually, I think he has been in some other stuff. Okay, all right. It says assistant director, Bloodsport. That can't be true. Really? That's amazing. If that's true, do you think he was assistant director?
Maybe.
I don't know. I wouldn't put it past him. He's awesome.
Anyway,
I mean, he might have just been, like an AD or a fixer, because he seems very Chinese, and obviously he's got good enough English to do some translating and facilitate things. And I don't know, maybe they just discovered him on set.
he was great. So, really, really enjoyable character, So, love him, love all that. So in this movie, you can gamble with women.
Of course.
You can say, if I take the the coin out of your hand, then I get the woman. But if I don't, then you get the woman. What do you think of that?
Well, that leads me to a couple of things. Because we were, you were talking about lines, and that guy saying "American asshole" is a line that I've always remembered. And it also leads me to some of the casting where that character's name is Hassan, and he's meant to be Middle Eastern.
Yes.
Played by a Filipino guy.
I'm deeply offended. Well, I feel like that's
it's weird. And then
he's a Saudi, isn't he? Saudi Arabian.
Well, I just remember Van Damme. He says, "Why were you with Hassan?" But he says everything weird.
Yes.
But part of the reason why this movie does work so well, and I think Ricky, you mentioned some of this where they've got all these different fighters, but I think pretty much all those guys are actual fighters.
Right.
So the Muay Thai guy, whose character's name is Paco. Now it's very weird to have like basically a white guy representing Muay Thai, but that guy is actually a legitimate Muay Thai fighter. And then I think same with a lot of the other guys, but they did do this weird kind of mix of just people passing for different nationalities, which you absolutely can't do these days. But the Brazilian capoeira guy, I'm pretty sure, is Arabic, because he then plays the main Thai villain in Kickboxer. It's the same guy. And Chong Li is, I'd never noticed until this watching, but his character is actually South Korean.
Oh, because of the headband.
Well, I mean, not just the headband, but yeah, a lot of the times there's flags pop up next to them, and he's got the South Korean flag. Because the headband looks very similar, but it's not exactly the South Korean flag. But yeah, there's other instances where it does come up.
Should we talk about Bolo Young?
Yes.
Well, that I was going to lead into that because another one of my favorite lines was where it's actually a few of them, beautifully dubbed. You break my record, now I break you like I break your friend. As well as bricks don't hit back. So after Frank Dukes does the Dimmak. Well, here's the thing about that line. So that's said by Chong Li, played by Bolo Young. Bolo Young was born Yang Zi, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Bolo was actually his character's name from Enter the Dragon, where Bruce Lee says, boards don't hit back.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. That's a famous line. They've reversed it where the villain says, bricks don't hit back, whereas the hero did it in Enter the Dragon, yeah.
But it is said by the guy who's in both movies, who's actually changed his stage name to his character name from the previous one.
Well, he knew which way the wind was blowing, okay? And he was like, I am all in.
Yeah.
I'm all in. I'm going to go, I'm going to change my name to the guy I was, because Bruce was so big,
Yeah. He has been in so many movies, this guy. Like, I'm just scrolling down the Wikipedia page now, and he's been in movies since 1970 all the way up to 2017. I'm not going to count them, but it looks like 80 films, It's crazy.
He's got such an amazing look.
Yeah.
I mean, he's huge. He's a bodybuilder, but even for a bodybuilder, he's got a very unique physique where he's got these incredibly out of proportion pecs. He just looks like a villain. He's bizarre looking.
He does that famous pec flex in most of the films,
Well, that's become a GIF as well, hasn't it? You know, all of it, all of these bits have.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, weirdly, because he's staying away from talking in this movie, like they've got a couple of key moments that we've talked about where they ADR it and they make a big deal of it, but mostly he doesn't talk. And so he does this sort of like really big silent showman stuff where he never speaks.
Yeah.
Do you notice that?
It's only in this viewing where I was looking at that thinking, like, you can see he's screaming when he's actually doing that. I think they've just cut the audio.
Right.
Because you can kind of see like the kind of veins in his neck and stuff. It's all kind of pulling. Like, I'm sure he would have been yelling on the day.
Okay.
But given that they dubbed him, they probably didn't want to dub that as well. Well, I've got to say, there's an army guy very early on in the piece who's like an American character, and he's completely dubbed by someone else's voice as well. So it's not it's not race related, the dubbing.
That was weird. I watched a little bit more of it. I rewatched parts of it just before we started recording. Yeah, and I did notice that weird captain guy is dubbed for some weird reason. Yeah.
I think we should move on to this big topic. We need to talk about Frank Dukes.
Oh, yes, we do.
You mean the real Frank Dukes?
So yes. So Yuri, you ruined my life. Okay. You sent me this fucking video, you know, where this guy told me that it might be the case that Frank Dukes is maybe a fraudster.
Did you not know this?
Well, I'd heard, I wanted to believe so hard, you know, that I just sort of never really, like people would maybe mention it and I'd just go, oh, what? Like, you know, and I'd eat my steak in the Matrix, you know?
Yeah.
Thinking that Frank Dukes was still a wicked ninja. So I've actually got a quote here, just quickly. I'll read out this quote. This is from the writer, Sheldon Lettich. I'd known Frank Dukes for a number of months before I came up with the idea for Bloodsport. Frank told me a lot of tall tales, most of which turned out to be bullshit, but his stories about participating in this so-called Kumite event sounded like a great idea for a movie. There was one guy whom he introduced me to named Richard Bender, who claimed to have actually been at the Kumite event and who swore everything Frank told me was true. A few years later, this guy had a falling out with Frank and confessed to me that everything he told me about the Kumite was a lie. Frank had coached him in what to say. Frank also used to tell me, and just about everyone he spoke to, that he had participated in secret missions for the CIA and the US military, that he had won the Medal of Honor for his terrorism. He even showed me the medal, which he had supposedly been awarded by the president. Years afterwards, when numerous people began questioning his stories, he stopped claiming that he won the medal and then began claiming that he'd never told anyone he'd won it. He even tried to convince me that he'd never told me he won the medal or that he even shown it to me. By then his entire house of cards had collapsed and nearly everyone he knew that he was just a delusional daydreamer and a big bullshitter.
Well, because, you know, supposedly, for those of you who haven't seen the movie, this is all based on a true story in the life of this guy, Frank Dukes, and Van Damme plays him in the movie. And I'd never bothered reading properly before because at the end, it freeze frames on Van Damme and, you know, doing the traditional Chinese sort of bow. And text appears on the screen saying this is based on the life of Frank Dukes and all of his amazing accomplishments. And I'd never bothered reading them properly. But reading them this time, he claims that in the span of 5 years, he was in 329 fights.
That's
so just to put it into context, so Thailand is huge with Muay Thai. And, you know, there's a lot of poverty that happens there and a lot of, you know, the main career for the males is becoming a Thai fighter. And they start competing when they're 5 or 6 years old.
Actually saw some
and they
matches when I
compete.
went there.
Yeah, it's crazy. And they compete.
They start with the kids earlier in the night and then it was the older guys. And yes, it was crazy. I couldn't believe it.
And they do it all the time because that's all they do, because that's the way they can feed themselves. And then some of them become big stars and start having a good life. But, this is, fighting and competing is their life. And those guys struggle throughout their entire career to get over 300 matches. And this fucking guy claimed in the movie 329 in 5 years.
Maybe he's just really good fighter.
I mean,
The best fighter.
in 5 years,
He's a ninja fighter.
it just doesn't happen. And then
Well, just says you.
most consecutive knockouts in a single tournament, 56.
Yeah, he's strong. He's really
We didn't
fast and
see
strong.
56 extras in this entire fucking movie in those arenas.
I know, but
56 in one tournament? How many people were fighting in this fucking tournament? It's just even the numbers that he put on screen were just so ludicrous. I can't believe I'd not read them properly before.
and
Yeah,
the videos,
fastest knockout, 14 seconds.
the
Look.
videos of him are outrageous, like him talking and stuff. Like he's got he's wearing sunnies all the time indoors and stuff, and he's a fantasist.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like a total fantasist.
Absolutely.
And
But I mean, he managed to get this movie supposedly made about him. So
well, that's what got me thinking. I got a couple of questions because do you think that is it okay for this movie? Like, what does does this film rely on this being true?
yes,
Okay, so do you think that it would have affected the success of the movie if it wasn't attached at the end?
I think so. I think it definitely helped. I still think it would have had success, but not the success that it did.
I think that freeze frame at the end and seeing that text is kind of like the cherry on top, because you would leave the cinema going, oh my God, I can't believe, because you'd go to it just thinking you're seeing an action movie. Then you come out and you think you've seen this amazing documentary, about this real life, amazing fighter.
And then you tell someone, when you're telling your mates, you go, oh, it's a great movie. And it's based on a true fucking story as well. You got to see it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, what is the relationship between martial arts, sort of film, and frauds? Because we've talked about this with Seagal.
Yeah.
Who's a bigger liar, Steven Seagal or Frank Dukes?
Definitely Frank Dukes.
Yeah.
Is it the Medal of Honor? Was it the Medal of Honor?
Look, I mean, Seagal is a legit Aikido master.
Yes.
Can I read you a quote here
Sure.
that I've got written down? It says, so writing in the book Actions Speak Louder, Eric Lichtenfield said that when his exploits are questioned, Dukes counters by actually exploiting his lack of substantiating evidence and spinning it into even wilder stories. Dukes says that the reason he no longer has the sword he was presented with at the Kumite is that he sold it in a failed attempt to buy the freedom of a boat of orphans, whom he later rescued from pirates. That he stopped a plot to assassinate Steven Seagal, and that discrepancies in his martial arts history are the work of fabrications by his rivals, including ninjutsu master Stephen K. Hayes.
It's Trump stuff. Trump does that sort of
Exactly.
where he just says, some people say, and then he'd say after a whole bunch of stuff, and you go, really? Did they say that? And he said, well, so
That's code for I'm saying.
yeah, well, it is, but he's a bit cleverer than Frank. What I love about this story, because it builds and builds. It's like, the Medal of Honor, the president gave it to me. Here's the medal. And then later on you ask him, and then he's like, no, I didn't get the president. And then you say, oh, but can I see it? And he said, no, I never showed it to you. like I love it when people do that. Yuri, it's like casino, When the fuck did I ever tell you?
Asked you? When did I ask you?
Yeah. It's crazy. I just love it. Like the most bald-faced lies. Like when you just go, oh my God, you're crazy. You're crazy. Oh, that's a shame. So he's a lunatic. But I put this to you, because at the end of the day, this is cinema. And, Fargo did the same thing, maybe to a different degree, maybe. but they came across as lovable tricksters. You know, I mean, so the Coen brothers say that Fargo is based on a true story, which many people believed in the same way that they believed, you know, many others. They also have posed. They created an editor that is actually them. Do you know what I mean? So Roderick Jaynes is actually them. So how come they're sort of impish and fun, and it's all fun and games, and it's all they're just amazing artists, and it's all fun. They're so clever. Whereas Frank Dukes is doing his own Andy Kaufman shit, and we hate it. We're like, is it because it's fighting? Is it because he's not strong?
It's also sleazy and potentially dangerous. And I saw a YouTube video with the stunt coordinator from The Quest, which Frank claims to have co-wrote and then sued over, and I think he lost his lawsuit. But apparently, the actual stunt coordinator from The Quest actually was at a dinner with Frank Dukes, and he didn't say anything until Frank started claiming that he'd been the stunt coordinator from The Quest.
Oh God!
Not knowing who he was sitting across from.
What are the chances?
And this guy gets up and goes, "No, you fucking weren't. I should know. I was. You were not there one day on set," and then walked away.
But then no, he should have waited, because I would have wanted to hear Frank say, "I never told you that I was on the
It would have been worth seeing what the response would have been. That would have been worth the price of admission alone.
He'd say, He'd say, "I never said it. In fact, you said you were on the quest." And that guy would say, "I know. That's what I just said." He says, "See, you know, see."
But, I mean, the problem from the martial arts side of things is that then these shysters then go supposedly teach people how to defend themselves, which can be potentially dangerous.
Yes,
if you've got an inflated view of what you're actually able to do. And that's still actually a really big problem with a lot of martial arts, especially in China. So now I'm gonna butcher this guy's name. Something like Zhang Zidong.
Oh, yeah.
Not sure if I'm saying that right, but it's spelt with X's. But anyway, basically, this guy is this, I think he's maybe in his 40s now, stocky, but a little overweight. And he's a Chinese dude who'd done some traditional Chinese martial arts and then got into MMA a while ago and has had some middling success in MMA, on any sort of stage. But he's kind of become internet famous because he was sick of all these supposed Chinese martial arts masters who were still claiming all these ridiculous abilities to this day. And then he started challenging them to actual fights. So he's fought supposed kung fu masters and Tai Chi masters and other traditional or guys who claim to be traditional Chinese martial arts masters, and a lot of these no-touch Chi masters, and he's beat the living shit out of them. But the thing is that these people have got huge followings. These supposed masters make huge amounts of money, enjoy huge privileges. It's to this day, and supposedly teach all these thousands of students how to defend themselves when really they're just selling them snake oil. So it's still like a problematic thing, and you can still get away with a lot of that sort of bullshit. So I think Asher, you asked, what is it about martial arts where you can do that? It's like, because there's still the ability to have all these claims and still be untested. So a lot of these supposed masters, even after he's done kicking the absolute shit out of them, they still come up with these weird, bizarre excuses for why they failed. But oh no, if it was real life or death, I'd do this, but I couldn't do that now. So I ended up just getting my face punched in instead. So there's still that element where you can still just bullshit your way through with a lot of this martial arts stuff.
It's a little bit like self-proclaimed prophets and cult leaders in a way.
Yeah, they almost do become cult-like leaders
because they need a following. They need a healthy stable of people who are going to come to them for lessons and for teaching, so that they can not only, I guess, earn a living, but I think there's part of it is being worshipped in a way, sort of like as this Grand Master guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, so the Chinese government has actually come down incredibly hard on this dude because he's exposing all these supposed masters who enjoy these very lauded and privileged positions inside, from what I understand, inside Chinese society. And the government is like, no, this is bad for, I think they said Chinese values or something like that.
Sense, though.
So he's not allowed to leave the country. The last couple of fights he did, he had to wear face paint, which first people thought it was some sort of like warrior face paint, and he himself did it to look cool. But it was actually the government saying, no, you have to make yourself up look like a clown to discredit you.
What the hell?
Yeah.
CCP. I love the CCP. They are the best bad guys that we could ever have been given. Do you know what I mean? Like, that is some mad shit. You know, we need you to look like a clown. That is crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Where are all the action movies where CCP are the bad guys? You know, that's got to happen.
Yeah, it'll happen when Hollywood stops holding out their hand for money to make them.
Yeah.
Like, we've talked about this. I keep saying there hasn't been a movie that even mentions China, let alone is critical of it, since 1997. Red Corner, Richard Gere, last film. That's weird. That's weird because, China is one of the biggest economies in the world. It's just a bit strange that we have a lot of movies that can't mention China, or even say anything about it. Where every fucking movie you watch, it's America with some domestic terrorist problem, and it's always the same. It's like it's always a Die Hard setup where it's like, Ethan Hunt or whatever, and a bunch of domestic terrorists, or these endless movies about how America hates itself and America's corruption and all that. And you go, okay, let's just have one movie where someone, I don't know, let's just say some random country builds a military base in the middle of the ocean that's in contested waters and threatens other countries with invasion and has proxies that fire missiles over Japan and stuff. And everyone's like, oh yeah, that sounds terrible. And I go, yeah, I know. Yeah, it all happened last couple of years, Can't do it though. Oh, CCP, that's crazy. Well, Frank Dukes, that's a shame that you've destroyed my dreams about him. I happen to think that, there's a line from John Ford's The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance: when the legend becomes fact, print the legend. And I think that, if we're talking about cinema, I think you're absolutely right. When it comes down to teaching people and those dangerous elements and all of that, if they didn't teach people and they were just sort of a bullshitter and like sort of who just wandered around and gave speeches and was in that and said they were in this movie and do all that, I would be happy with that. I'd be like, okay, that's fine. Because there's a lot of noble lies that I put up with, and if it means I can have Bloodsport and believe in it, then that's okay. It's a shame that he's a filthy, disgusting liar.
Well, I mean, I still don't think his crimes are as big as many other people. So, I mean, I think he had his own martial arts school, but I don't think he was particularly successful or anything like that. So it wasn't huge, but he's still a dick.
He's a dick. But and part of me, when I heard how successful it was, don't you ever think you're like, oh, maybe I should just lie a bunch if it meant that I could be successful for a bit?
Yeah.
Do you have that thought where you're like, or you got too much integrity, think like that? I was just like, oh yeah, maybe I could just be just a fabulous liar. And
do you think it's harder to lie in today's day and age with the internet, Wikipedia?
Yeah.
Could you be Frank Dukes?
Well, you've got to be
today?
that guy from Don't Fuck with Cats. Which is a documentary, a credible documentary about it, just a complete psychopath. If you want to be a modern day liar, you need to work 24/7.
That's right. Yeah, you need thousands of different social media accounts and stuff.
It's like a real job.
Yeah,
but isn't that a little bit of how QAnon started? I've not seen the documentary about it, but I've heard that it might have just been some reasonably young guy just making some shit up, and then it caught traction.
Well, obviously, popular.
Yeah. So I think there's
cut to the Q shaman in the January 6 riots.
Yeah,
proof of concept.
Exactly. Yeah,
fuck. I tell you what, no one has ever done anything of that import based on anything I've ever said. Okay. Like, I say a lot of stuff. No one stormed the Capitol over any of it. Okay.
No.
I've said it's okay to have a chubby. I've said they're not listening. They don't want to know. They're like, we don't care. Okay. Whereas Q said some shit and then they all were like, yeah, let's storm the Capitol. You know, bring the cable ties and the rest of it. You know? Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that.
Just to backtrack a little bit to one of your side boob cinema reviews, because it's a little bit related when you guys did Say Anything. Now, I still haven't seen the movie, but after you, I never knew that John Cusack's character was actually meant to be a kickboxer.
Yes.
So I Googled the scene where he's actually doing his workout, and you're right, he can't kick for shit. He sucks.
Right. Okay, I got a little heat when I said this. Like, you know, I believe Ricky said, "Oh, but he just started," and I said, "No,
just started.
I know, but I said I did do some kickboxing, some Bob Jones Muay Thai. I tell you what, I ain't never done a kick like that." Okay, it's simple. The beauty of those kickboxing kicks is they're simple. Do you know what I mean? Like in terms of what you got to do. Like it's just like, you know, pivot on the foot and just smash that shin as hard as you can into, you know, something in the midsection if you can, whatever. And he was doing this mad sort of real, I don't know, what would you call it, Yuri? What was he doing?
Limp. Call it limp. Well, I mean, he was, look, he wasn't turning his hips into it. He was just kind of flicking his leg out there, which, that's not the way to do it. I mean, look, there's potentially a place for that sort of kick because it's a lot faster, and if you almost want to use it like a jab, but that's not what he was trying to do. He just wasn't good yet. I'm sure he got a lot better, given that, you know, according to your guys' podcast, is continued kickboxing to this day. So I'm sure the next year if they'd filmed that movie, he would have been doing a much better job.
Let's be clear. I don't want him to challenge me to a fight.
Oh, he's pretty old now, though, isn't he?
He is, like, you know, and part of me thinks I could take him, but then, you know, never know. He did spend 20 years with Benny the Jet Arquitez. So I don't know. Like maybe
he'd probably kick all our asses.
Yeah. Maybe. Well, that's some good feedback. That's good. And I love that you listened to the episode and you hadn't watched the movie. That's perfect. Yeah. That means we gave you everything you needed to know.
Yeah.
You were like,
now I don't need to watch that movie anymore.
You're like, that's done. That's fucking done. Good. Yes. Very good. All right. Well, I think we should probably wrap this up. What do you think?
Look, I got a couple of quick notes about.
No, please do. No.
So I'm not sure why they kept on pairing up until he fought Chong Li. I'm not sure why they kept on pairing up Jackson, who's one of the biggest guys in the tournament, with the smallest guys in the tournament.
Right.
I mean, maybe it's because that guy actually doesn't, you know, he's just meant to be like an American brawler. He doesn't actually have any fighting skill. So maybe it was for plausibility's sake. I don't know. But his first two matches are with these tiny dudes that he just literally throws out of the ring. Oh, yeah. There's one shot where there's like a white guy, I think he's fighting one of the Chinese dudes, where he gets caught with this like spinning heel kick and then turns and jumps in the complete opposite direction of where he just got hit. And I remember that guy from when I was little because it's in slow-mo as well. It's like, he's going the wrong way. Why is he jumping that way?
Right. There's a couple of those moments, isn't there? Where
there is.
Where
there
you
is.
just go, okay.
The African guy that Dukes fights. Now, I don't think it's the guy who was doing the monkey style fighting. It's the other bigger, taller guy.
Yeah, the tall guy. Yeah,
who does that weird pre-fight psych out.
Yes,
if you remember,
he gets his ass kicked straight away.
Yeah, I always thought that was a great, almost like a comedy moment, because even when I was younger, and even now, that psych out thing, I've always found that terrifying. And then he just gets knocked out with one blow. I'm like, that's almost like a comedy beat.
That's great. Good stuff. Loved it, and it's real cool, really good kick as well that he gets.
Oh yeah,
it's a bit like in Indiana Jones where the guy pops out with the swords and makes a big show. He does this showy thing with the swords.
Don't worry, you won't be seeing any more of that.
No. Well, actually,
and then he just shoots him.
I recently saw a movie called Boss Level.
Okay.
Where they reference that exact scene
Okay.
Except it's a woman this time who's
Finally.
flinging the sword around, and she's
Right.
Chinese,
Right.
and she makes fun of it. It's like,
She makes fun of it.
yeah,
Does she get shot?
no, she dodges all the bullets.
Fuck off. She does not, does she?
Yeah,
That's terrible. That is.
apart from like a couple of little woke bits of bullshit like that, it's actually an enjoyable movie.
Okay. I think it's got my man Mel in it, doesn't it?
I don't know who that is.
Gibson.
Oh, Mel
Gibson.
Yeah. He's the arch bad guy. It's good fun apart from that. But anyway, going back to Bloodsport, in his final fight with Chong Li, he does 4 helicopter kicks in a row.
Yes.
Which
Excellent.
they're amazing, completely unrealistic because they're the slowest, most telegraphed things in the world, but it still looks awesome.
I just love that was born so bombastically, like they didn't just do one and go, okay, moving on. They said, no, do 4 of them.
Yeah.
In fact, get it from the behind and we'll just cut between the 2.
You guys would have heard how Van Damme got this gig.
Yeah, he went up to the head of Canon Studios and did one of those above his head.
That's right, yeah. Like waited around, I don't know, somewhere, just waited for him for hours and then just came up to him and did this amazing kick.
Mm. But in stark contrast, his first fight against Hassan is total bullshit. So Hassan just throws a punch and then waits there while Frank catches his arm and then elbows him or back fists him or something. So it's one of the least impressive fights, but you just kind of go, okay, it's the start and the building up to the good stuff. But unfortunately, in real life, he split that motherfucker's lip open with that elbow.
Well,
so it's the least entertaining fight to watch, but it's the one where the guy got hurt. So it seemed like no one got hurt with those amazing helicopter kicks, but a terrible little shitty elbow busted a guy's lip open.
Well, that's always the way, the most impressive stuff is the least effective,
That's right. And just one last thing, which I found incredibly weird, which ties in with a little bit of the, kind of homoerotic type of remarks I was making about how there was some of that in Cyborg in this one. He says, I love you to Jackson, not the girl.
Yeah, well, you're right. This is a buddy film. Like, Janice is just the prize.
Well, she's it's almost like she's a bit of fun, but the real relationship is Jackson. The real love story is between Frank and Jackson.
She'd be looking at the way that they're looking at each other and saying, why doesn't he look at me that way?
Yes.
He's like, he's saying anytime you need me. And she's like,
But she's very manipulative though. Like she'll do almost anything to get that scoop on the kumite.
No, well, I believe all women, as you know, so I would never say that. I just think that she was, strong and powerful and doing a job, and you're saying that she's a liar. We shouldn't believe her. Just because she had sex with Frank straight away and then turned up with another dude the next day
at the kumite,
as a prostitute. By the looks of it, she was dolled up, like she wasn't just there, like you know what I mean. Like someone might
with a baseball cap on, just watching a sporting event.
No, she did. Her hair was fabulous. Okay, and she was with like a high flyer. And what do you think? He doesn't want anything at the end of the day. He wants a slice of the action. Okay, and by that I mean sexual intercourse. Okay, Yuri.
just making that clear.
Did you get that, Yuri?
See, I didn't pick up on what you were getting at until you just said sexual intercourse. So yeah.
Okay. Well, we continue taking notes as we go. So yes, excellent stuff.
So just wrapping up, this movie was a big success. Yeah, it made $50 million. Is that right?
Yeah. Right. I guess it was made
on a budget of I've got written in my notes here like $2 million.
Yeah, it's huge. And I mean, the sequels, no good. Don't watch them. They're terrible. And I fell for every single one of them at the video store.
Did you watch the more recent one where he's back?
Oh, no, I can't. All these guys on Insta are trying to get me involved. They're like, no, his stuff had a bit of an off period, but now it's getting good again. And I'm like, shut up. No, it's not.
No, it's not good. But I did watch it because there are some actual UFC fighters in that one.
Okay.
And just kind of bring it back to the UFC stuff a bit again. A lot of those fighters actually reference this movie as part of the reason they got into that profession.
Wow. Well, that says everything.
Yeah, and he actually just, I guess to answer a question that no one asked, but we were talking about if Seagal was legit. So Van Damme did actually have a bit of a, well, in Europe they called it kickboxing, but in America they would have called it, I think, karate. So he did have a bit of a good career in his youth. But then he, much more recently, I think this was maybe about 4 years ago, he actually came in and did some sparring with a guy who at the time was a UFC champion on one of the weight divisions and almost knocked him out with one of his kicks.
Oh, that's cool.
So they were doing this kind of light sparring sort of thing, and he flicked his leg out so fucking quick that this guy, who's actually known for his speed and his reflexes, just did not see him coming, and it clipped his nose.
Oh, wow.
And Van Damme immediately starts going, oh, shit, I'm so sorry. Shit. And, the guy gets all pissed off and all the rest of it. But, no, man, his legs are something else. So even, he would have been maybe even in his 50s at that point.
Yeah.
He still had the, speed. Obviously, he fucked up a little bit by actually hitting him. I don't think they were meant to be making contact. But, he's got some amazing legs.
No, that's cool. I would hate, you've already destroyed me with Frank Dukes. I'd hate for you to say, as it turns out, Van Damme is a liar, fucking liar as well.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
He's no good.
No, he can probably do some stuff. So on that same video I watched with the stunt coordinator from The Quest, the guy who was interviewing him asked, "Oh, who do you think would have been the best fighter on that movie?" Because the people they cast in that film were actually legitimate fighters as well. And this stunt coordinator guy seemed to think that Van Damme wouldn't do well against any of them. But then again, by that point, he stopped being, he stopped properly being a fighter when, in his teens, and then became a movie star. So there's a, big difference between, film martial arts and then, actual sparring. There's people who think that Bruce Lee wouldn't have actually been much good compared to, professional fighters at the time. It's kind of, one of the big unanswered questions. So, but again, kind of to make the same point again, Van Damme's kicks, man, fucking amazing.
Yeah. Hey, have any of you guys seen JCVD?
No.
Yes, I saw that.
I read it's very good.
I think it's helped by the fact that it's in French, because I tend not to pick up on bad performance as much when it's subtitled.
Yeah.
Maybe because I'm not as familiar with how things are actually meant to be said, so if they're being delivered properly or not. But at the time, I thought it was all right. And there's, JC has this big moment where it's almost like he's delivering like a soliloquy, like straight down the line to camera, and he gets all emotional and kind of teared up because it's semi biographical. So he's playing himself and it's based on his real life, but I think things are heightened and, but it's worth a watch. It's interesting.
I'm a purist. I only want the early stuff. I told you nothing after Double Team. Even then, I was just well, I know I plotted it. I was just like, I was there on the ground. I was like watching this as it was happening. I was like, oh my God, it was getting worse and worse and worse. And then, he just totally fell off, Legionnaire, all that stuff. And I was like, what is this crap? I think that this early stuff, Kickboxer, Bloodsport's great. Death Warrant, Wrong Bet, all that stuff's good. Sudden Death, Time Cop, Maximum Risk, maybe.
Double Impact.
How could I forget? Double Impact. Great stuff. And totally fell off. And this new shit, I'm just like, I don't want to see him like old and gross. Like, I want to see him do something proper. He's always like, an appendage or doing some meta nonsense, where it's like, oh, I'm JCVD. It's like, no, I don't care about that. I want you to do something where you're wicked and like actually wicked, like Rocky Balboa, the comeback film.
Yeah.
Why have you got to do it? Like, why have you got to just, ruin it? You're ruining it. Okay.
Well, on that note,
sorry. All right. We said what we said.
So what we said, another successful Mano a Mano. Thanks again, Yuri, for stepping on board.
Thank you. I love these. They're great fun. I look forward to it.
Well, we've got to think about who we're doing next. I feel like we need to do some Chuck Norris, maybe.
Yeah,
Talk about
sure.
I thought maybe Dolph.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's do some Dolph. Let's do it.
Well, long live the new Flash.
Long live the new Flash. No, you don't know what it is to be a slinger.